Hello and welcome to another episode of The Addict's Advocate. I'm your host, Dusty Dean, and it is my pleasure to welcome Jamie Tall to the show. How are you, Jamie?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Through the power of TikTok, we met. You're on a recovery journey as well as I am. I know you have a coaching practice and you are working with people and have great channels, great topics of discussion that I hope that this evening we'll get some time to delve into. One of the things that kind of struck me, preparing for this show tonight was that I I recognize, that we have people that are normies, right? They don't have a drinking problem, they don't have an addiction problem, whatever it may be. You have people that are struggling in their addiction that won't seek help. You have those that are seeking help in their recovery, right? And you have those that are post. But you also have this subset of people that are really the hidden people, right? And those are all the ones that are dealing with it internally. You don't see it on the outside. They question themselves. Maybe they're good at hiding. Maybe they're constantly playing this justification in their minds. Those people I feel are so important to reach out to because they're constantly dealing with the game of shame and guilt, and or what are people going to think about me if I come out with this? And there's this constant mental tug of war, and I feel like these things are important. Our interactions, our discussions about what it's like in recovery, because one of the things that I truly recognized in going through a recovery program and just working on your addiction and who you are as a person is you level up. You can't help it, but you level up. You really just you move up a notch in life, whether it be your confidence, whether it be just your capability of being present in life and grabbing opportunities when they come versus wondering where your next drink's going to be or your next high is going to be. And that's really what life's all about, right? Is not trying to chase the things that are causing us pain, but try to meet them head on, try to get to the bottom of them, try to understand us and accept ourselves for who we are, because I know that we have a hard time doing that as addicts. We don't accept us. We're not proud of ourselves. And so those things are important to me. It's something that I will be 50 this year, and I went through addiction for most of my life, not recognizing it and or playing that game where I would quit something for 5, 6 years and thinking that I was cured. And within a year and a half, I'd be back in that same, point of questioning myself. Why did I do this to myself? And quit again and then get back right into it. And it wasn't until I truly recognized the progression of this disease and just the ability that I can't bounce back like I did in my 20s and my 30s. The symptoms are longer. And I'm just devastating everything in my wake. My job, my family, my livelihood, my health, my well-being. It's just all going away. And I know that with people in recovery, that's one of the common themes, is that they know if they go back within 3 to 4 weeks, they will have destroyed everything in their lives. It's just the nature of this beast, and that's got to stop. And we want people to feel better. We want people to feel healthy in themselves. And that's why we do what we do, right? So I'm done yapping. Jamie, thank you for spending the evening with me. Please, I like to hear from my guests. What was the journey like? Tell me anything and everything you want to share about this journey of recovery for you.
Well, first of all, I just want to point out that you have amazing genes for turning 50.
Thank
I
you.
think that recovery and God really like gives that back to us. I'll be 45 in July,
You
and
look great.
so it's like, I just feel like things just keep getting better and better. I always say, if I could have like this mindset and wisdom and the things I know now back when I was 20,
Mm,
oh, the world would have been in big trouble, right? I would have
right,
taken it over
right.
for sure. Um, but yeah, like coming into recovery is the best thing that, I've ever done. And when I was younger growing up, I actually found that my first addiction was to escape. And so I did that in many different ways. Grew up in a super broken household, very poor. My parents were like 15 when they got pregnant with me. You know what I mean? I don't hold anything against them because I mean I'm can hardly handle my children now, and I'm about to be 45. So I can't imagine at 15 what I would have done. So grew up in a very cultural Sicilian household. If you know anything about Sicilians, blood is thicker than water. What happens in the family stays in the family. And, there's just there's a lot of things that happen, and there's not a lot of communication. And if there is communication, it's usually very like a lot of yelling. It's very like high volume, you know what I mean? And then things kind of get like just swept under the rug instead of like dealt with and talked about and things like that. And so I guess I kind of picked up that kind of communication style, in everything. And we moved around a lot, being that my family was poor. My dad, he was a little bit of a criminal affiliation, a little bit, not super involved, but he did some things, um, being involved with Sicilian crime and things like that. And so we had to move a lot. So, and when I say we moved, we didn't move like down the street. We moved like, like across like the country. So it's like, and it was like fast moves, you know what I mean? So I went to 12 different schools by the time I had gotten to like 8th grade. And being a person, with the mentality of, of an addict, we already don't feel comfortable in our own skin, right? And then having to kind of keep all these secrets and not be able to build like real connections. And plus I was like a chubby kid, so had a lot of like self-esteem issues and just like never felt accepted. And I was a very much a like a performance based kid, like, oh, maybe if I get all good grades my parents will love me. Oh, maybe if I bring all the kids in school candy then they'll be my friends, so trying to kind of like earn or buy people's love, or for me to feel like valued or significant to them, and that also affected my relationship with God. I was brought up in a religion. um I'm not going to say which one, but I'm just going to say that it was very like performance based. Like if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll go to heaven. So I never knew anything about like a relationship with God, although I did talk to God often and I did pray often. Um, so I feel like, that was a part of things too, because I ran to other things to try to cope and make myself feel better. When I was young, it started with books. I would read. I mean, I would read like whole books in one day, and just and I would write books and write stories, and I would write these lives like of a girl, of the kind of life that I wish that I would have, a girl who is popular and
Mm.
accepted, and all the boys liked her and things like that. And then food was another thing that I used to escape, right? And so I found these kind of like coping mechanisms. And every time I would move somewhere, it was like I would be like, well, they didn't like me over here. They didn't like this Jamie. So next time when I go to this place, I'm going to be this Jamie. Like, and maybe they'll like me then, you know what I mean? So I, much like people in addiction, was able to pick up on that chameleon mentality where we can kind of mesh and fit in anywhere, right? Which now I feel is like a superpower, right? But, and my addiction started with your basic high school stuff, right? Just like experimentation, like smoking pot and watching Austin Powers and doing psychedelics and going to raves, and it was fun, right? Until it wasn't. But I was very functional for a really long time. Graduated high school with good grades, went to college, worked 2 jobs, and went to college. Actually went to college for like 10 years. I was a professional student, and, just couldn't figure out exactly what I wanted to do. So I went for all these different things, ended up with like a 2 associate's degree and almost a bachelor's. And when I got into the really, really hard drugs, which for me, what, the game changer was crack cocaine. That was really what took me to places where I was doing things that I wouldn't normally do. Right. So, um, I guess you could say that was when like my addiction really like took over me, where I was like lying, scheming, cheating, stealing. Um, I would steal from my parents. I would leave my children, just like abandon my kids with my mom. You know what I mean? I was a terrible mom. I'm not one of those moms who's like, oh, I was a good mom in addiction. No, I was a terrible mom. Like I was the kind of mom that said like, "Oh yeah, I'll read you a bedtime story. Just go downstairs." And then I'm running out the door, or "Oh yeah, I'll walk you to the bus stop tomorrow for sure." And then not come home for like 2 weeks. You know what I mean? I was that kind of mom. And so, that caused me a lot of guilt and shame, right? Because I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I stop smoking crack to take my child to the bus stop? Right. So it just covered me with this guilt and shame. But I was like, I can control it. I can control it. You know what I mean? I can figure it out. And I would have periods of like manageability, right? Where I would be like, okay, like, you're gonna, stop doing this, and I'll just like, just smoke a lot of weed instead. You know what I mean? But it would never work because, the devil's always right there with, somebody who's got some free stuff for you somehow, right? That never happens unless you're not trying to use it, right? So it was really just like such a battle, I feel like, over my flesh and in like the spiritual realm, honestly, like over me, you know what I mean, over like my soul, like what side was I going to play for? Because I was real good at playing for the devil side. I mean, I was, influencing everyone to come over on this side and let's get high and let's have orgies and let's have sex and let's do, you know what I mean, all these things, right? And let's party and it's fun. Who cares? Leave your kid with your mom. It's okay, it'll be fine. Don't go to work tomorrow. Don't go to your kid's graduation. You know what I mean? Like I was real good on that side. And I know that, that the enemy wanted to keep me, as their key player on that side, but God had a different plan. And so, I had a couple rock bottom things that happened. Of course, I always try to dig one level deeper into like the basement, of the rock bottom. But eventually I did I did get I call it like a nudge from the judge to go into recovery. But I went through a lot of like hardship before that actually happened, and that was in 2015. I mean, addiction brought me to doing things I said I would never do. I would never, choose drugs over my kids. I would never drive with drugs in my car. I would never sell my body for drugs. I would never help other women sell their body for drugs. You know what I mean? I would never like do those things. I would never steal from my parents, right? But when addiction took over me, I did all of those things, and more, and it landed me in jails, institutions, all of these things. I got arrested for prostitution. The last school that I went to school for was for massage therapy, and I was in my addiction, but I when I went to school for massage therapy, I I found something that I loved more than drugs, and that was being able to help people. So I started to cut back. And when I say cut back, I mean, I'm not going to sniff any cocaine until I'm done studying for my test, right? Like I was able to do that because I found like a passion, like something I really loved. And that was in 2006. But but what happened was, because I was still trying to maintain myself, right? I didn't have any coping skills. And of course, I didn't tell anybody that I had a drug problem because I can handle this. I've got this under control, and I really didn't, but I was able to kind of make it look like that, for periods of time, but then things would happen, right? So in 2006 I had like three like traumatic things happen in like 3 months, and I had found out that I was pregnant and had a miscarriage. Then my dad died unexpectedly at 42 from a heart attack when he was in Aruba on vacation with my mom. That was right around Easter, and I was actually supposed to be at their house for Easter, but I missed Easter dinner because I was passed out at some guy's house from being up too many days and taking too many Xanax. And then on April 12th, I found out that my father had died, and I was just devastated. And that kind of pushed me into like smoking crack again really bad. And I was of course, how am I paying for this? I'm selling myself, right? And so I had a Craigslist ad, and it was the day before my graduation from massage therapy school. And I went to a hotel in Polk County, Florida, to um, go, do a deal, and it was a sting. And so, like, it was wild. Like the whole, the whole hotel was actually shut down. Like the front desk person was fake. The guy on the bench was fake. It was a big, big, big sting that they were doing. And so got arrested and didn't make it to my graduation for school. They blasted me all over the news. So like, I mean, my name, my address, my birthday. Like, and it was so devastating, embarrassing. Um, trying to explain, give some kind of excuse as to like what happened. Why were you there? Why did they say that you were doing this? And it was really hard, but that still wasn't enough, you know. So it did knock me back a little bit, right? So I went and I got like a waitressing job at Denny's or something, and started saving up to get a lawyer, and still like proclaimed to my school that this wasn't true or whatever. And I ended up getting, because I didn't really have like a record or anything, I ended up getting it taken, like, what do they call it, like a suspended sentence, like if you complete this many months of probation, we'll take it off your record or whatever. But I was just so like ashamed to even do anything, to even try to like pursue anything. And I just thought like, well, this is just my lot in life. I smoke crack because I'm a crackhead. Like, that's it. That's all I'm ever gonna be, and I was also really mad at God also, for taking my dad, and for the things that happen, because also when you are in the life of escorting, strip clubs, there is a lot of like sexual trauma that happens, you know what I mean? Sexual assault, sexual trauma, so many things, and the feelings of like unworthiness, you know what I mean? And it was so crazy because I was so broken and had such a spirit of rejection on me. I would go to like do these deals with these guys, and then I would be upset that they didn't want me to stay. You know what I mean? Like, that's how broken I was. Like, oh,
Oh,
they just want to give me money and not for me to leave. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
got it.
that's what happens when you're a prostitute. They pay you to leave quietly. Like, that's the job. But to me, and in my broken lenses, I want to be loved and accepted and valued and feel significant, that I'm like, oh, even these guys, even they don't want me.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like in like my whole journey, I was really looking to be valued, loved, to feel significant, I just looked for it in all of the wrong places and had no coping skills and would never open my mouth and say, I need help, until I, um, until I got pregnant with my daughter, really. Um, but before that I had, I just stayed for probably another like 2 years. I made a geographical change. And, but of course, funny thing that happens, wherever Jamie goes, there she is, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm going to move to this new place, and I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to be a good mom. Cause my son was like, he was, 4 years old at the time. And I'm like, I'm going to be a good mom. I'm going to do the right thing. And, got a waitressing job at Applebee's. And within 3 months, I'm working at a multicultural bar, dancing on the bar, selling myself, and doing cocaine again. So, um, it was kind of like a crazy cycle. And then of course my mom had to move next to a crack dealer. It's like just the enemy just like sets you up for all these things, right? Like, how is this possible? What better luck could I have, but that was the plan of the devil. And I ended up getting mixed up with like these guys, and they had me doing like all kinds of weird stuff. Guys call you for all kinds of weird stuff when you have an escorting company. It's not like all just like what you think. There's some weird stuff that goes on. So I got involved in some kind of like occult activity. And you can see it would have sounded weird probably like a year or two ago, but I think with all this stuff with the Diddy parties coming out, like people are starting to see like this is a real thing. Illuminati, occult activity, like it's a real thing. And so I ended up kind of getting involved with this group of guys. And I thought it was like the easiest job that I ever had, because they just like called me goddess, and they were like, you don't have to leave. It was so interesting. I've never seen anything like it, honestly. But it made me feel good. You know what I mean? I was like, oh wow. And it was really easy because I really didn't have to do much. I really didn't have to do much, but it was a strange kind of thing that they did, or whatever. And but then they kind of got obsessive with me, and there was so many of them, like there was like thousands of them, like, and they were on like this like dark web. And I just they started to freak me out, and I was just like, so I just started like blocking them. But then it seemed like they just like followed me. It was really strange, and now I know that it's spiritual. It is a spiritual thing. The gang stalking phenomenon. A lot of people will say that it is, technological, because they use things like microwave waves, V2K, which is like voice to skull technology, all these things. Maybe I'm not here to argue with anyone. Maybe it is technological. However, one thing I do know is true is there are only two kingdoms. There's God's kingdom and there's Satan's kingdom. There's no line. So you're either on one side or the other. So for sure, these people were not working for the Lord. So yeah, so like that happened, and I tried to do everything that I could to like get away from that, and I thought that I did for a certain period of time. And then I had made another geographical change. Met up with a girl who had an escorting company, and started, doing some work with her, and ended up getting into some different clients. She dealt with a lot of like policemen, and we had some doctors, and this was right around the pill mill thing, you know what I mean? It was 2008. So ended up getting, hooked up with this doctor, and I would go in and I would trade him sex for prescriptions, and prescriptions for me and prescriptions for all my friends. So I started selling pain pills, and I didn't do them at first, but then it was like one day, like, oh, what is this? This little blue pill with the M30 on it, like, and I tried it, and I fell in love, and that kind of started my addiction to pain pills, which really took me to a whole different place. Like, I will still tell you to this day, like, if I had an infinite supply and I could marry that little blue pill, I would not need anything else. Like, it was just like I was like obsessed with that
Yeah.
feeling with the
Yeah.
of the those pills. I've never, felt anything like it. But unfortunately, the withdrawals from the detox when you run out is not worth the run on it. So and that was like a whole nother thing, getting into the pain pill scene. And at that time, I actually had ended up like getting back together with my kid's dad, and I thought, like, oh, here's another chance at doing it right. I could be a good mom, and I could have a do-over with my family, and you know what I mean, do the right thing. And I wanted to so badly, but I could not stop using pain pills, even though I wanted my family, even though I wanted to do the right thing, even though I was pregnant. I couldn't stop using pain pills. And so, um, at about 7 months pregnant, I came clean to my OBGYN and told her, I have a problem. I've been using these pain pills. And she had given me like a prescription for like some Tylenol 3 or something, small, maybe some like Percocet 5 or something, right? For like whatever carpal tunnel that I had made up that I had, right? And so I said, I've been using these pills like more often than you've been giving them to me, and I'm concerned for my daughter's health. And so she said, okay, well, we'll just probably keep her for a couple days and just watch her. I'm sure everything will be fine. And the day that I went into the hospital, had my daughter, and they took her from me right away. They took her from me. I was not allowed to be in the same room as her. And it was devastating. It was just completely devastating because I couldn't understand why, no matter how bad I wanted to in my will, I couldn't stop using, even for this beautiful little girl that I loved so much and wanted so much. And so, but that actually kind of started my revolving door journey into treatments. So I would go in and out of detoxes, in and out of treatment, 10 days here, 3 weeks here, a month here. But every time I would think, okay, I'm cured. Now I can use drugs like everybody else. And that, you know, for me is not how it works. So I couldn't figure out that if you don't put in, Jamie, you're not going to have withdrawals. Like that just couldn't compute in my brain. I remember detoxing on this guy's couch and him telling me, like, you never have to do this again. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it wasn't even a possibility in my mind that I would never do it again. Like, I couldn't even like get it in my brain. That was not even a possibility. And so, yeah, jail charges, all kinds of different things happened. Eventually I had another a run-in with this group of guys, and I got to I started doing meth, and I got to see literally like the veil lifted in the spiritual realm, and I could literally see like demons everywhere. I mean, like the like almost like these people they were like puppets, or I could see like the what was controlling them. And it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. They had my phone, like I mean, anywhere I went on my phone, they knew where I was. Anywhere I would go to the gas station, I would see the same people. There would be like the same cars following me. They could see everything I was doing in my phone through my camera. And like anytime if I sent a text message, like they knew what it said, you know? I tried to leave a couple times, like, and things would happen. Like they would like shake a pill bottle at me. Oh, you're going to leave? And it's like, what am I going to do? Be sick? You know what I mean? And I would just like sit back down. So they used the drugs as like a means to control. And I wasn't the only woman. There was like several women that were there. And they used witchcraft, things like astral projection. And I could literally see when they would do things, I could see like snakes, which now I know in the spiritual is witchcraft, right? So eventually I think I was with them for probably about 3 years. There's 1 year I have literally no memory. Like there's no memory. Like there's nothing on my Facebook for like a whole year. Like I have no idea what happened. Not a clue. I had no memory. And so finally I got arrested just like kind of randomly, and I had like some charges that I didn't go to court for, which is pretty typical, right? And but when I went to jail this time, I I knew that it was going to be different. And so I was like I was a lot more in tune with God this time, because like when you see the whole like hell open up in front of you and realize like what you're living in, all you can really do is start talking to God, right? So I really like began like crying out to God. Like I had journals like, God, why have you forsaken me? Like left me in this place, you know what I
You were
mean?
truly praying at that point.
Yeah, truly praying, crying out to God, like I am seeing hell, and I want out, like to get me
Yeah.
out of here. And eventually he did. There was a lot of like supernatural stuff that happened. Like he sent people to try to talk to me, you know what I mean? Like it was so crazy. I remember like one time this guy came and was like told me like, you don't belong here, you're not supposed to be here. And I was like, who are you? Like what are you doing in the trap house? And it was just wild to me. And people would come and they would say scripture to me. And I didn't know it was scripture at the time because I didn't know the Bible. One guy told me, I know you don't understand what's going on right now, but you have to trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean to your own understanding. And I was like, bro, you need to on somewhere, like, um just different things. One time I even had this is like one of my favorite stories of things that happened. This is so wild. Is like somebody started writing in my journal, and and it was like one day I came in and I opened my journal, and it said the word Emmanuel. And I was like, who is Emmanuel? Like, what is this? And then the next day, like underneath it, Emmanuel. And I'm like, I don't know who this Emmanuel is, but he better stop writing in my journal. He better stop touching my stuff, And the next day it said, his name is Emmanuel. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And I was gangster back then, so I'm trying to fight whoever it is that's doing this, you know what I mean? it was wild. Like I ended up actually getting run over like the next day by like one of those guys that actually like ran me over. They
Wow.
had taken me to my mom's to get some clothes, and they were like mad whatever about something, and I went and like walked in front of the car, and they ran me over, threw me in the back of the car, took off with me. It was really wild, but the last time that I got arrested, I went to Gwinnett County Jail for 20 days, which is so interesting because the first time I went to jail was in Gwinnett County for 20 days. And it was so strange because I swear it was like the same people that was in there the first time and the last time. I'm like, what is this, a rerun? Is this like the sign of Jonah? Here, try it again. Let me spit you
Right.
back out,
Right.
And but this time I had gotten arrested. It was for the charges were for like a schedule 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It was just a little bit of everything. It was like a variety pack of like all these things, typical Tuesday night for Jamie. And so the judge is like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put you on a felony probation, and that's going to be for 4 years. Do you understand what that means? And I was just like, no. He said, okay, that means for the next 4 years, you cannot fail a drug test or get in trouble, or you're going to go to prison. And that just, something clicked in my brain at that moment. And I realized I don't know how to do that. And so when I got out, I surely proved it because I was using it again within 3 days. And but I ended up going into a sober living in Athens, and that was July 20th, 2015. I walked into a sober living, and there was a house that had 13 women in it. And I was like, is this like a sorority or something? What is this? And the lady, the women's director said, do you know why you're here, Jamie? And I was like, no idea. And she's like, you're here because somebody sees something in you that you can't see for yourself. And that like really hit me because it was the first time like I felt that I had like some value, like somebody saw
Yeah.
something valuable in me. And it was definitely a hard shift, you know what I mean? But it was really cool because I had a room, and it had a bed, and it was mine, and it was safe. And I had a dresser, half a dresser. I had a share, half a dresser, to put my clothes in, and I had a bathroom with a shower, and there was a kitchen with food. And I knew that this was a safe place. I knew that it was safe. It was on like a women's campus, so there was like 80 something women on this campus. And it was just it was definitely a new life. I would like to say that like all my old habits just like fell off the day that I walked in, but they didn't. I didn't use drugs again, but I did still have this mindset that I needed to use my body for a means of getting what I wanted. So I was still relations with men for rent money, for rides, whatever, even though like I had a job. And then one day there was this girl, and she was my roommate. Actually, she was a woman of great faith, and she heard me on the phone with a guy. And when I got off the phone, she said, hey sis, I'll give you a ride. You don't have to do that. Like, I'll give you a ride. And I was like, for real? Like, you give me a ride? Like, you just help me? You know what I mean? She's like, yeah. She's like, I'll give you a ride to work every day. You don't have to talk to that guy ever again. And, that was just so kind. Like, I had never like had anybody just be kind to be kind. There's always, everything was always so transactional in the
Yeah.
addiction realm. And also like letting a woman in, you know what I mean, like a healthy relationship, was nothing I had ever really experienced before. So I did everything they told me to do. I followed the suggestions. They told me to go to meetings. They told me to get a sponsor. They told me you have to go get a job and you can't wear that. You have to take a shower every day. Like all these things, like they just walked me through how to be a functioning human being, really. And I listened to everything that they said, you know. So I think at about 89 days sober was the first time I ever told my story. And it was actually in one of the crisis units that I had been a patient in. And so got to tell my story. And it was incredible to me to see the people, the light come on in their eyes when I told them, hey, I used to be sitting right where you are, and now I have 89 days sober and I have a job, and I got to go visit my children last weekend. And, you know, I have friends who actually care about me for me, not for what I have, you know what I mean? And you can have this too. And it was just beautiful. And in that moment, I had found purpose for my pain and a message in my mess. And I was just really on fire for recovery. And that was also the same time that I really started to have like a relationship with God. And I kind of got that through the steps at first, the 12 steps, because I really had to get Jamie out of the way so that I could like have a relationship with God, because I was still a victim, you know, these things happen to me. Um so once I got through some steps, I was able to open up this relationship with God, and he really began to reveal himself to me. And I also had an amazing mentor, which was incredible. There was a pastor who was the counselor at the sober living. His name was Pastor Ricky. He had just come from a deliverance faith-based treatment center and had just came over to where I was at. Like he got there like 2 weeks before me. It was completely God appointed 100%. And so I started, you know, studying, you know, the Bible, and he discipled me, and I was in a 4.5 year discipleship. He was also the first man to ever believe me about what happened. And usually what happened when I try to explain to people about like the occult activity, the demonic stuff, they would just be like, no, Jamie, you were just high, you were just on drugs. And when I told him, he was like, oh yes, we see this all the time, you were trafficked by a satanic cult. And I was like, holy smokes, you believe me? Like, this is wild. Like, this is crazy. Like, yeah, this happens all the time. And now I see it, you know, all the time. I've been called out to quite a few situations. And they're really, they're tough. They're very tough for me to deal with. I try to help as much as I can, but it's very triggering to me. So I can only do a little bit, at a time. But it's amazing to be able to, you know, to tell people, I believe you. I know you're not crazy. I know that what you're saying, you know, you're seeing, I know what you're saying is happening to you is really happening. So that's really awesome. That's kind of what makes me a little more unique than your regular just like recovery coach. I also finally did get my massage license. Finally got my massage license. And I actually made a protocol for massage therapy for people who are in recovery and women who are coming out of human trafficking. And so I created that, implemented it in a nonprofit, ran it for like 3 years, and then started teaching at the massage therapy school and teaching the students how to deal with traumatized women and helping them understand a healthy touch and things like that. And so that was really amazing. And became a recovery coach for Georgia Council for Recovery in 2018. Started my own business in 2017, faith-based massage therapy studio. Still running it. That's my day job. That's how I pay my rent. And have a relationship with my children. My daughter, she lives with my mom. She's always stayed with my mom, so I get to just come alongside. I talk to her, get to see her whenever I want to. She is very busy. She's like 15 now, so she's like a cheerleader and she has a boyfriend, and so just kind of, get in where I fit in. But yeah, I mean, and my son, he is about to be 21. He actually came to live with me when he was 19, so I got to be like mom for the first time when he was 19. And that was great. He just actually moved out to go to college, and he's living with his girlfriend and going to college. So that's really awesome. Yeah, and I actually started working about a year ago, got really into outreach on the street ministry. So I'm real passionate about street ministry. I work with an organization called Soul Savages, and we do these events where we go out into the homeless camps, into the streets, like all over the place, and we do harm reduction. I'm huge on naloxone. Everybody carry Narcan, naloxone with you all the time. Give out fentanyl test kits, educate people, pray for people. If people want to be placed into treatment, we'll get them into treatment that day. And so that organization is out of Knoxville. So we're currently working on creating an arm of that in Georgia called Remnant Rescue. And so just been working on that. We're having a big event June 28th, actually. It's called Stronger Together. So it's kind of a fundraiser to kick off the Georgia arm. So we're really excited about that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just kind of just
A lot.
serving, and I try really hard to being a content creator is interesting. So I have like a very large following on all of my platforms. And that was strictly the Lord, because I didn't do anything special, but I try to use my voice to share about the true love of Jesus, not religion, but about the true kind nature of God, that he cares about you no matter what you've done. And I'm an example of that, because I've done like the worst of the worst of the worst, and he still chose me. So I try to carry that message that he chose us, all of us. So
I love it, Jamie. I mean, there's never hardly a time that I listen. I have the pleasure of listening to people's stories, and at the end, I just go, "Wow!" Because I mean, today I'm just like, "Wow!" I mean, this was when you think you hear it, and you're like, "No, I have not heard it all." I've got like 2 pages of notes here. You see me over here scribbling as we were talking. Have you forgiven yourself?
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am a new creation, and I always tell people what you did is not who you are, right? So forgive myself for getting addicted to drugs. I mean, I blame Satan. I mean, yeah, of course, like I had my part in it, right? You know what I'm saying? But like, I'm not that person. It's been, 10 years into my recovery journey. I don't know what more I could do to like make up for it. I know for sure in early recovery, it's really hard. There was a lot of shame. I feel like it probably took me about till year 3 when I had like finally like got my own apartment, had a car, had my own business, and I'm doing everything I can to like be a good mom, because like mom guilt, I'm sure dads too, is like the worst. Like it is
Right.
so hard.
Yeah.
And I was trying to really sweep my past life under the rug, but it's like, I was like, Jamie, what are you so ashamed of? Like you should be dead. Like you should not be here
Right.
right now. And look at everything that you've accomplished. Like that's a
Right.
miracle. That is a testimony to God. And so when women have that, unforgiveness toward themselves, I tell them to bring it into God's light and let God show you what he sees about the
Right.
situation. And it'll be much different than what you see.
Uh, well said. Well said. And I think that that's important. I think everybody, especially in the process of recovery, the only way you're going to heal is by forgiving yourself for the things that you did, for the way that you treated yourself, the way you treated others, in this other state that you're in. Because yeah, I know that I had a lot of reconciliation that I had to do, and I mean, of course, with my habits when I was in my addiction, I'm going to be paying the price for it for the next couple of years still. Because one of my caveats was I love to gamble, and so when I get into my addiction, I gamble, and so now I get to deal with the financialness of that side. I'm going to be coming up on 2 years in August, so. Um, but yeah, I want to kind of start because you've talked about so many things. I appreciate what you said about being a mobile kid, being a lot of different places. I spent a lot of time up until I was like in fifth grade, basically living with family, moving between houses. We were trying to save up for a house. And so there was a lot of transientness, if you will. And I know that the statement is that, you know what, yeah, kids are resilient, they're gonna be okay, but it's not to say that they aren't affected by it, right? Um, so I think we need to be more sensitive to that. I definitely try to recognize that, hey, you know what? Our parents did the best that they could, and unfortunately we don't know what we're born into. And some people get a luck of the draw, some people don't. Um, I think that we also have to forgive, them too, because the goal is that hopefully every generation gets smarter, right, than the previous one. And we've learned. And my big thing, obviously, recognizing that some of what I'm dealing with is a generational curse. I want to squash it like now. Um, but
Absolutely. And go you can go back in your bloodline and smash all those altars too, but we can have that conversation another day.
well, right. I mean, yeah. And there's, you had talked about, you don't know who, you didn't know who you could talk to. You were playing mental gymnastics at such a young age. And again, I feel like, I mean, addicts are very high thinking people, very high thinking. I think they're very self aware. I think they're very externally aware. They're doing a lot of analysis, especially if they don't feel comfortable in their own skin, especially if they're trying to fit in, especially if there's maybe a lack of love somewhere in their life, right? Because I think that's a lot of it, right? There's because the kids, right? We need reinforcement, and that's one of the things that we don't recognize. I think as parents is that what, they're doing great. We tell them good job and stuff, but sometimes they just need to be pulled aside and be reminded that, hey, have I told you lately how wonderful you're doing? And just list things for them because they need it, right? And just because we make the assumption that our kids know we're proud doesn't mean that they need to hear it. It's just bottom line.
Mhm.
Um, this whole thing about my lot in life, you were kind of, feeling like, you had reached a stage in life where you felt like you were unworthy. You were like, I'm accepting this is kind of where I'm at, right? Um, I've heard this from other people, especially I think age is a critical function of it. I think that the type of drug is another function of it. Um, but that to me is kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of the show is to me is I think one of the most tragic things in life for somebody to get to themselves that point mentally. Suicide is around the corner at that point. I mean, you're dealing with a serious mental problem that's
Mhm.
drug induced. Heck, there may be some already underlying mental health issues that need to be addressed on top of that. And so, but to hear people say that, because I had a previous guest on who literally had said that they were fine with just continuing their habits if it hadn't been they got pregnant. They were basically at that point in their life where they were done. And that's tragic. I mean, it's so tragic. And And I wish people would understand that are so abrasive to, this notion that addiction is something that is truly progressive. It's a disease. It's genetic. It has all these undertones to it that some people just, they never have a fighting chance unless they get the right help. This whole occult thing, man, it's kind of blowing my mind. I mean, because I watch all the news and all the weird, interesting things, but I've never. One of the things that I guess it's so scary to me is that we don't see it maybe brought out in the open more as it needs to be and brought aware so that people are more vigilant and more protecting, right? But you also have the notion that they're just walking amongst us, right? It could be a store owner that we interface with, and and you see weird movies sometimes where these things are going on, you're just like, well, that never happens. But the reality is you're saying, no, it does. And yeah, I mean, in a sense, you were basically in this system that you had no idea you were part of until after the fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Absolutely. And they're not your like scum on the corner.
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking like high up judges, owners of law firms, doctors, law enforcement. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about
Yeah.
high up stuff, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure they
Public
probably
figures.
have it on that, lower level as well, on whatever level, you know what I mean?
Right.
But and you have to think like the cartel. I had a guest on who was gang stalking. He was actually a professor at Yale.
Wow.
Went through Yale, was a professor at Yale, got involved with a guy who was in this, like, they call it like a narco cartel or something, and it's like a gang where they do this, like, they manufacture meth and they do witchcraft over it, and it's like a real thing. And he had gotten two people from Yale fired because they were gang stalking him. So he was like successful. It's like it happens to people at every level. Like, sometimes you just kind of happen to get in
Right.
the wrong place at the wrong time. And then the thing is, like, sometimes, then too much, right? And they don't want to let you go. And that's kind of where the stalking and the harassment and all the other weird stuff comes in, because they want to discredit you, right? Nobody's going to believe her. Look at, she's on drugs and she thinks that this is happening. You know what I mean? So they want you
Yeah.
to be discredited.
Wow. Yeah. That's Well, I got to say that it's impressive, and thank you for being a service to these people whom are being recovered from these trafficking, situations. Because yeah, you are rare in that regard, right? As probably being vocal and being able to be front lines and helping these people recognize that, hey, no, you're not talking crazy. We understand. Because again, we need validation, right, on some of these things, because like you were saying, one of the problems I know that happens in addiction and stuff is that because you're second guessing yourself, you also feel like just people just completely discredit you. So everything that you say is basically completely invalidated because you have an addiction issue. And I think that to me it's harsh, it's unfair, right? But so
Mhm.
even in recovery, people still don't give you the benefit of the doubt, and that can be challenging. Um,
Absolutely. And that's what, I really thought it was so crazy when I started kind of coming out about my experience of what happened to me. And then I started having women say, this happened to me too. And I was like, what? Like, it happened to you too? And so I started kind of doing some collaborative videos with some of these women.
yeah,
And I'm telling you, hundreds of thousands of comments on these videos of the same things happening to people, women and men, you know? So it's like, okay, you can tell me I'm crazy, but what about all
right,
these people who are saying the same
right,
exact thing happens?
right. Well, and we can go down a rabbit hole with, in a whole nother conversation with talking about the fact that with technology being the way that it is, we should
Mm-hmm.
have the capability of finding all these people that are perpetrating it.
You
I
should.
mean, right? But again, agendas, right? Unfortunately.
Right.
Um, the whole victim mentality thing you had talked about, that to me, I think is another interesting thing, because I know for a long time I had played that card, and I think there are enough stories, if they're bad enough, people go, I get it. I get it. I understand why you're, but again, it's even if you're justified in behaving the way you are because you have a victim mentality because of things that may have, of course, maybe traumatized you from the past, which, it's still, that's the worst way to manage it at the end of the day, right? It's the worst way to manage it because you're never going to grow from it. You're going to constantly deflect. Everybody else is the problem. Um, I'm curious on your take on that with just, I mean, I'm assuming now that you can totally sense it right from the beginning, right? I mean, when people have victim mentalities, when they're trying to go through recovery or.
I mean, if they're blaming, like you have to look at both sides. Like even with, I remember my sponsor, I was so mad at her because when I was going through my 4 step the first time with her, and I was talking about kind of how I got involved with, this group of men, like, oh, well, you went over there for drugs. Were you being a good friend? Like, wait a second. Did you just spin that on me? But it's like, dang, I really wasn't. Like, if I wasn't being a good human being, that was manipulation. It
Right,
was harsh, like at
right,
first, but then I was able to, and then of course, like for me, Holy Spirit conviction, like kind of brings that out, like with motive, but sometimes that even takes longer. So, really, like checking your motive. Am I being self-centered and self-seeking and like trying to
right,
be manipulative? Am I being dishonest? Like just being constantly like self-aware. We can be, like you were saying, people in addiction and recovery are very self-aware. Well, we can be self-aware on the good and the bad side. So kind of
right,
just like retraining your brain on that is important for sure. And just telling people you can only be accountable for your side of the street,
right,
especially
right.
in this season that we're in. I want my side of the street to be real clean. So
No, for sure. I agree with you. And that's one of the things that for me has been, I've been trying to consciously navigate that more. If I have, if I have something that's, I need to assume responsibility in some way, shape, and form in what's going on here. Even if I feel like I'm completely in the right, and even if I had other people telling me that I'm completely in the right, okay, well, so then at this point now, based upon this situation, I have a responsibility in how I'm going to respond, how I'm going to deal with this, right? And how am I going to get through this in a way that's going to, in my sense, maybe maintain my dignity, right? Validate the other person's perspective, right? And come to but that in of itself is a little bit mental gymnastics. Just because I think, and again, I think in addiction, right, we don't understand how to talk to ourselves, right? We don't understand how to talk to
mhm.
ourselves. And so we got to get, in recovery, that's one of the first things that we need to do, right? Is work on that self care. How are we talking to ourselves? What's our self talk like? You know, where's our gratitude? What's our motivations? Why do I feel the need to do these things? Again, there's a lot of discovery that needs to take place. So,
Hmm. Dismantling false belief systems
right.
is is huge. That's something I work with a lot of people on, especially
Yeah.
women who have trauma, because like you have to be able to see yourself through the right lens. If you've been told your whole entire life that you are useless, that's what you're going to believe. So you have to find some truth to counteract that and
Right.
say like, no, I'm valuable, I'm worthy, I was hand knit in my mother's womb before the time of creation. God
Right.
chose me, he predestined me, I have a hope and a future. I am chosen, I'm adopted, I'm a royal priesthood, like all of these things, you know what I mean? So just I find the most powerful thing that you can do is take those false beliefs and combat them with truth that I
Right.
find in the Word of God. So, and if you don't read the Bible, you can just ask one of your friends, tell you what they think about you.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because in recovery, because when we had this relationship with this drug for so long, and in recovery, we've lost that relationship, right? And so there's now this void in our life, as weird as it is, that everybody's cheering us on for. But we're like, okay, but how do we exist without it? So, and again, if something doesn't fill that up, right, in a positive way, right, we end up becoming a dry drunk or a dry whatever, and we're just basically occupying our time doing other things to avoid doing the thing that we were wanting to do. And that doesn't lead us anywhere, but right back to where we started. There's no growth in that, right? Recovery isn't stopping the drug use. Recovery is so much more than that.
Absolutely.
Um,
Growing to be like the best version of yourself, like constantly, like every day, just trying to improve your life, really. Um, not making choices that harm you or harm your life, making choices
right.
that make your life better and make other people's lives better,
Yeah. Yeah.
serving.
As much as we were in our addiction, thinking that some way, shape, and form we were helping ourselves and we were making life easier for everybody else around us. Um, One of the things, even just in talking about faith, one of the things that struck me was just, it was really one of the biggest liberating statements I ever read in scripture, but it was also one of the biggest slaps in the face that kind of made me aware was just Paul's in New Testament. And I've talked about this before, but Paul in New Testament says, I do not do what I want. For if I did what I wanted, I would not do the things that I do.
Hmm.
And I sit there and I go, that's a lot of our dichotomy right there in a nutshell. So succinctly put. And as much as, we can control our actions and our words and stuff, we still have to even battle our thoughts. Our thoughts come in and out, and we sit there and we watch them come and go, and we're like, and it's just, it's remarkable, right? And so I think that people that are in recovery were on the front lines of that struggle, I think, in a
For sure.
sense.
I mean, because we have to like die to our flesh. Our flesh is what, but it's still there. But then we can't like be in all this condemnation, like if we do fall into our flesh too. So it's like such a like balance battle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've really been into offensively praying recently. So I learned about
Okay.
this offensive praying where I'm like,
Okay.
making these like decrees and declarations, like I have the mind of Christ. I am of sound mind. You know what I mean? And it's like, and putting literally like putting on my armor every day, like literally like putting on my helmet of salvation, putting on the breastplate of righteousness. I have the sword of the spirit. You know what I mean? Like I'm literally going through it and like putting it on to like be like I'm in offensive mode. Like I'm coming out. Like I'm not waiting for you to attack me. Like I'm coming out and I'm ready. And that's
Yeah.
like that's good. It works most days. I still have days that I get trampled, but I don't stay down for long.
Well,
But
yeah. If you're trying to have a good relationship with God, right, and at the same time you're dealing with recovery, it's a double whammy for sure, because as it was, previous life, right? We basically brought ourselves to whatever state we needed to be in constantly every day, and that was our life, right? Now we have to succumb to the way that it's just going to be, good and or bad, and we have to
mhm,
balance. Is it because I'm dealing with the body, or is it because my relationship maybe isn't as good as it should be today with the Lord? Or and so you sit there and again, there we are again, hypercritical and hyper thinking and doing all those things that we do again, trying to navigate
mhm.
this new life. And Fortunately, we were already forgiven, right? So
Right. Just yeah, also remembering I mean, if you're a person of faith, like there is no sin problem. Jesus nailed the sins to the cross. So
right.
stop tripping over your sins and just let him love you. Just be in love with Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure, right? Yeah, yeah. Problem solved a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Long time ago. Long time ago. Um, so yeah, so recently I had a really interesting trigger. Um, and my trigger was I was in Lake Tahoe and was having a great time, and was and the funny thing is that I have no problem with gambling when I'm sober. I can be in casinos; it doesn't trigger me. I can play just a little bit and completely in control, and everything's fine. And don't drink, don't have the desire to drink or nothing. So I'm good, right? And I ended up dealing with the snow issue going home. And it was the snow issue that caused the trigger. It was the stress of driving home that did it to me. And it was And that was the thing that really kind of caught me off guard, just because, I mean, I was really, my physiology was just like fried when I got home. And I recognized that, oh my goodness, because I know that my work life is such that I can have moments of very, very, very high stress. And I usually feel it residually in my body later. And so it takes me a lot of time to come down from that and everything. And of course, the old way was just, I'm heading to the liquor store on the way home, right? And so managing that, right? Having to be patient with myself, having to, ride the time out, having to talk it out, saying, I've recognized this for what it is. Right? Everything's just totally shifted in my head and the way that I feel. And so I'm just wondering if you've had any like weird off-putting triggers that maybe weren't, because I think we try to be cautious, right? We're walking around life like, hey, we got our gloves up, nothing's getting in my way. So it was like all of a sudden, oh my goodness, you slipped in and you caused this on me. Now I need to put another guard up. Anything like that for you?
Yeah, mine is a little different. Like, well, I can say, okay, first of all, if I'm really tired, I don't do well. So trying to be like self-aware when I'm really tired, right? Like try not to make
Okay.
any life-changing decisions after 8:30 at night, right? Like I don't do well when I'm tired. I go to the gym in the morning, I do deep tissue massage therapy all day. I get tired at night, right? So
Right.
like knowing when I'm tired, number one, being aware of that. Um Mine is actually like familiar spirits. Like, so if I run into a person, especially a man, and I'll
Oh,
be like, he reminds me of, or he's doing this thing like this you know what I mean? And it will
okay.
trigger me into thinking, oh my goodness, I'm back in this situation again. This is where I'm at. I need to go hide in my house and not talk to anybody and and you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like go back into like old behaviors, right? Like living
Got it.
like in fear. So that's how I get triggered. I deal
Hmm.
with that very often.
Interesting.
Very often. I call it,
Interesting.
especially if the I say like if the spiritual realm is lit, if there's like some stuff going on, like okay, if anybody here is into like in the prophetic at all, you'll know what I mean. If there's something going on in the spiritual realm, like some kind of like extra demonic attack, if it's around a full moon or like around like an hour where there's like some kind of like a lot of witchcraft going on, or a specific holiday, or you know what I mean, like something like that.
Yeah.
Like anytime that the atmosphere, I can feel something is going on, like in the second or third heaven, you know what I'm saying, like up there, like something's going on. Then I'll start to get because I'm very sensitive. It's like to just like strongholds in the atmosphere, like different regions that I go in. Like I'm just real sensitive. So like those are things that trigger me.
Okay.
And then
Interesting.
also if I see somebody like going through things, like when I like one situation I got called to go try to talk to these women. It was a family, and the family, they were like grooming. It was this whole like generational grooming of trafficking and abusing like their own children, like I mean for multi generations. And so I was there for like a month with these ladies, like in class. And I would just drive home, and it was like that was triggering to hear what they had been through, knowing what I had been through, knowing what they had been through. Even though like some of them were also doing bad things, it was because they were groomed to do
Right.
those bad things.
Right.
Multi-generational, family occult stuff. So like that kind of stuff triggers me. If I feel like unsafe, you know what I mean, in a situation.
Yeah.
So those are more like my triggers, like
Yeah.
a
No,
little
it's,
bit
it's
different.
thank you for sharing. I never thought about that way, but yeah, I get, well, again, people, places, and things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I can imagine. One of the things that's been interesting to me too is that I think that if you're dealing with an addiction and you have healthy relationships all around you, right? You're going to come out of that and everything's going to be great. If you are in an addiction and you have relationships around you that maybe one's enabling, maybe one's codependent, there's all these different types of ways in which relationships are manifesting. That can present some challenges in recovery because you have a new version now that you're presenting to the world. I think you have a much more stable version of yourself. You have a stronger one. You have one that's set up healthy boundaries. You have one that's really taking care of themselves. And so if people were used to penetrating all those boundaries because you never had any, and now you've put them up, and it's completely irrespective of whether you're talking your family member or a stranger, it presents for interesting dynamics. And I think that, we could have a whole nother conversation about mental health and about relationship management that maybe sometimes drives mental health issues and that can drive addictions. And all those things. But have you had any struggles in your recovery with just things that you thought were like, gosh, this person's going to be the cheerleader for me and to be like so proud of me. And then all of a sudden they're like, they're not, they're completely opposite of what you thought. Have you had that experience?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, family, uh, friends, maybe when I started doing well. When I started doing more well than it, not when I started doing well in the beginning, but when I started, doing
Thriving.
well for myself,
Thriving. You were
So,
thriving. And they were like, damn you. Isn't that
yeah.
just, that's horrible, right? It's so horrible, but yet I get it. Okay.
Yeah, like people, they just don't understand, how I can do like the things that I do. Like, heck, I don't even understand how I do the things I do. I shouldn't even be here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Go ask Jesus. I don't know. But, but I actually, so my pastor, he gave us like these categories, especially in early recovery, so important, to have like, no contacts, little contact, or allow them full access. You have to be real careful in who you allow in your circle, the things you're telling people. And
Yeah.
that's maybe we've probably either been on one extreme spectrum or the other. Like either we're like, we think we can trust everyone and everybody's like us and we can trust them, or we think we can trust no one and we're not telling anybody anything. So it's like finding that, that boundary. But I still, even like today, like, it's interesting. It was actually just like 2.5 weeks ago, one of a gentleman who I knew from my past, who like may or may not have been like around my life like during that time that this kind of stuff happened to me with these guys. Maybe he knew, maybe he didn't know, I don't know. For me, like it's very hard. He kept like contacting me on Facebook, like just like, hey, how you doing, looks like you're doing great. And I
Yeah.
just try like to just blow it off, not answer or give like a one word answer, but it makes me uncomfortable because it kind of brings me back to that time. And I
Yeah.
finally like got up the courage like a couple weeks ago to be like, listen, I'm not trying to be a dick, but I can't be friends with you. I don't
Yeah.
talk to anyone from my past. It
Yeah.
triggers me and I'm trying to live a new life.
Right.
And he was
Right.
just like, wow, okay, I understand.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, we know that in life, right? The relationships come and go, and we have people that are in our lives for spans. I appreciate that. That must have been tough. I commend you for the strength to do that. Because yeah, and it's awkward, and you know that the reality of it is like we're just going to be Facebook friends most likely. I'm never going to I'm not going to see you. We're going to small talking on Facebook for the rest of our lives. I'm good. I'm good. We don't need to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Are you finding in recovery, because you definitely are, you've got a lot of awesome time underneath your belt. Did you find in recovery that when you reflect or things became aware about your lifeline, if you will, right? About your story that maybe wasn't relevant to you in addiction, but now it kind of maybe closes gaps for you? Are you finding things like in your story, or like maybe just more so maybe realizations? I mean, you obviously sound like, the family growing up and things like that, there was dynamics. Do you, do you, is it just more clarity for you?
I mean, for sure. And also like being able to understand like the generations, to being able to see like the generations of, say, like my parents, right? Because for like a long time I was like, oh, it's because, well, because I grew up with this because of my parents. But then I'm able to say like, well, actually it's because like my parents parents and their parents and their parents, you know what I mean, which
Yeah.
helps me to
Yeah.
be able to like forgive, you know what I mean, on like
Yeah.
a larger level, just to be able to like have more empathy, you know what I mean, and to be able to see honestly like the big picture of addiction, like things stem from in other people with like broken
Right.
families
Right.
and poverty and occult activity in this family way down
Right.
the line. You can kind of see like the bigger picture of like humanity and be able to say, I can understand why this person acted that way. Just being able to like have empathy, I guess. Being able to see people like how God sees them.
Well, and maybe, I think you're hitting a point here. I think that's important, is that you can't sit there and say, I have an addiction. So based upon which thing that it is, right? Pick your choice, right? Cocaine, heroin, meth, alcohol, marijuana, etc., prescriptions, whatever. And then go stop doing those. The problem is solved. That's not the way that this works. And unfortunately, maybe it's that people that are dealing with their addiction want it to only be that, because they don't want to open up Pandora's box with mental health, generational trauma. Tell me about your family lifestyle. And so, but that is enriching. The reality of it is that you get to know so much more about yourself in this journey, and you know so much more about those people around you that you've been interfacing with. I mean, you start to see it all, and it can be very painful. I know that I had major breakdowns and detox and going through my rehab, and it was absolutely needed. It was things that I can now put behind me finally, things that I didn't want to deal with, and they're liberating. And yet they had nothing to do with my physical dependence on a substance. It was something completely in my heart that I just never wanted to deal with. And I think that we need to, first of all, we need to be intelligent enough to recognize that it's not just surface level, right? Because otherwise, all these programs would work every time, 100% of the time, and we'd have no more addiction in the world. And we know that doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, this has been great. We've been at this for over almost an hour and a half
Yeah.
now. And again, with you telling me that all the things that you do, are you tired? Are you getting there?
I still have to do some laundry, so
Do you really? Hey, you know what? I think that we've covered a lot of ground tonight, and I appreciate your time. I've got a ton of great information that I think is going to be worthy for people to hear throughout the next week or so plus. Um, and I obviously want to promote, your coaching. What's the best way in which people can reach out to you?
So my email is jamietallcoaching@gmail.com, or you
Okay,
can reach out to me on, Facebook or TikTok. I don't get on TikTok as much, but mostly Facebook, or by email. Directly by email is the best way.
wonderful.
And um, follow my YouTube channel, Jamie Tall. If you've been a woman or a man who has been through, trafficking or gang stalking, or you have a addiction, wild addiction story, hit me up for sure. Check out my YouTube. I think I have like 350 videos or something like that on there. And we have an event coming up in Athens, Georgia. We're so excited. We've got some amazing recovery speakers. The event is called Stronger Together, and we are uniting the recovery community through music and testimonies. And we're going to have some food trucks, and we've got some raffles. It's a free event for the whole community. So if you are in the Georgia area at all, or you want to travel, like come on in June 28th from 2 to 7. And it's at Revival City Church. We've got flyers up. There's going to be the amazing Drew Hicks, Johnny and Myra from Chicago Hope Dealers are going to be there. Matt Keegan's going to be singing. Jared Blaine. I mean, we've got so many people. We are going to have a altar call at the end for like prayer. We're going to have a candlelight vigil. It's going to be amazing. So yeah, I just want to
Wow.
shout out my Stronger Together crew. Sober is Swaggy. Who else? Brianna. There's like 12 of us, so we're really excited about
That
that.
that sounds absolutely wonderful. I'm glad you're doing so much out there in Athens. You're truly, obviously, a Southern warrior out there for us, doing a whole bunch of great work. And I truly appreciate the things you're doing for the trafficking that's happening in this country. It's a scary world out there, and I pray that you stay safe, and you definitely always keep yourself surrounded by great people, and continue doing the good work. But I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. It was so nice to meet you, and congratulations on your 2 years.
Thank you. You take care.